Hey, today we're going to talk about absolute value. This is a totally new concept that none of you have ever seen before. So, absolute value is the amount, the distance. Hold on, let's write this down. Absolute value is the distance that a number is from zero. Okay, so it's the distance a number is from zero with no regard to sign. So let me explain. If we have a number line like this, and zero is right in the middle, and over here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. And over here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. Normally we would say that this is -5. But when we're talking in terms of absolute value, what we only care about is how far each number is from zero. So -5 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps away. So 5 steps away. And +5 is also 5 steps away. So the absolute value of -5 and 5 is 5 because they're both 5 places away from zero. You can also kind of think of it like this. Like if you've got a person, okay, and another person is standing over here, and another person is standing the same distance away over here, and then another person's down here, and they're the same distance away. Everyone is the same distance from the red, but they're all in different directions. We don't care about direction. We just care that they're each 3 steps away. Let's say everybody took 3 steps. So all we care about is that they're each 3 steps away. So when we talk about sign not mattering, that's what we mean, how far away a number is from zero. So here's what absolute value looks like. Absolute value uses a new notation that we've never seen before, and we call them bars. And they're just 2 long lines. And we put a number in the middle, like an X or maybe even an A. If you're using Desmos, the button on Desmos and a lot of calculators looks like this. So they're extra long bars. They're not to be confused with the number 1 because they're nice and long. They act like brackets. So they act like brackets in terms of order of operations. So let's look at what something might actually look like. So if I asked you for the absolute value of 5 that we've already talked about, the absolute value of 5 is 5. And the absolute value of -5 is also 5. So you'll notice that the absolute value of any number must be positive. All right, so the absolute value of anything has to be positive. Let's look at a couple more examples. What if I want to know the absolute value of -214? Well, it's 214. And the absolute value of 36 is 36. And the absolute value of -87 is 87. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. So let's take this up a notch. Knowing what we know, what if we just do something like this? What if we take the absolute value of 5 and add 2 to it? Well, the absolute value of 5 is 5, and 2 is, 2. So 5 plus 2 is 7. Okay? So I took the absolute value of only the thing inside the bars. Does that make sense? Let's try a different one. What if we have the absolute value of 4 and we want to add it to the absolute value of -3? All right, the absolute value of 4 is 4 plus the absolute value of -3 is 3. So 4 plus 3 is, 7 again. What a coincidence. Okay, let's try a couple more. What if we, let's get a little crazy here. What if we say the absolute value of -5 plus 2? Okay, now, what are we going to do here? Remember, the bars act like brackets. And order of operations tells us to do everything inside first. So what is -5 plus 2? -5 plus 2 is -3. And what is the absolute value of -3? 3. Okay, not bad. All right, let's try another one. Let's throw some negatives in here. What if we have -20 minus the absolute value of -10? Okay, so our -20 stands minus, and the absolute value of 10 is 10. So -20 minus 10 equals -30. Now remember earlier I told you that the absolute value must be positive. Don't let that confuse you. This is a negative answer, but the absolute value of -10 was 10. We subtracted it from a negative number, and that's allowed. But when we took the absolute value of the value inside the bars, we always will have a positive number. Let's try a couple more. What if we have -5 minus the absolute value of 8? So our -5 still stands. Subtract. The absolute value of 8 is 8. So -5 minus 8 is -13. Okay, let's keep going. Let's throw a little tiny wrench in here. What if we have the negative absolute value of 4? And we're going to add that to, 6. This is acting like a bracket. So this negative, because it's written directly next to it, this is acting like a -1 being multiplied. It's really no different than when we would say like -3. We know that that's multiplying, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to take the absolute value of -4 first, and we know that that is 4. Now, outside of that, we have a negative, and this is like a -1, right, that needs to be multiplied. And we can add 6 to that. So this is -1 times 4 is -4 plus 6, which equals 2. Okay, let's try another one of those. What if we have negative absolute value of 8 minus 10? So the absolute value of 8 is 8. We need to multiply by that -1, right? Minus 10. So -8 minus 10 is -18. So I took this negative out front. It's multiplying because it's just a -1. But you have to take the absolute value first. It says order of operations. Okay. Let's recap everything we just talked about. Absolute value, I usually abbreviate like this. Its symbol are bars. All right, it must be positive, and it's the distance from 0. Okay, so the absolute value of 3 is 3, and the absolute value of -7 is 7. That's all there is to it.